Welcome back to America's Frontline. We've officially reached over 1,000 subscribers, so thank all of you guys for your support. We really appreciate it. Please like, share, tell all your friends, get the word out. We're going to keep doing this show. We're going to keep building it and, hopefully spread some truth. We are talking with Dr. Melissa Graham. She has been working with threat assessment for 20 years. Today is officially her first day of retirement, so she can talk about this stuff. She's been working through a project called the Fusion Center, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
Sure.
Thanks for coming on, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the Fusion Center.
Okay. So let me back up a little bit. My primary role has been a psychologist for the city of San Antonio. I was with the police department for 14 years and then the fire department since then. In that time, I was able to work with a group out of the Fusion Center, and it's a multidisciplinary group. You name it, federal, state agencies, local agencies, school districts, colleges, things like that. And the purpose of the group is to work together to try to stop mass casualty events.
That dynamic has changed quite a bit over a 20-year span.
It has.
Especially in the last 5 or so years.
So the group didn't really get started, and I'm not going to be accurate on the dates, but I'm going to say somewhere around 10 years ago. And it's grown enormously since then, as far as participation from different groups and different agencies and things like that. So San Antonio happens to have a model that is kind of become standard. So a lot of different cities have come to visit to see how that group works so that they can establish things like that in their own agencies.
So Dr. Graham, you mentioned that there were participants in the TAG or threat assessment unit. Can you tell me what other agencies, who also is involved in this process? I imagine it was quite lengthy.
At different times depends on what they're looking at, but on a regular basis, there would be, say, the FBI there, Homeland Security, fire department, police department, sheriff's department, and then frequently also there would be, say, UTSA had somebody they were concerned about, where they would come to the table and we could talk about that case.
So UTSA,
University of Texas at San Antonio.
Oh, awesome. So I don't know, how would someone, a subject you might say, come into view? How would you come to maybe talk about an individual or somebody you're doing a threat assessment on? How does that happen?
In a variety of ways. Sometimes it's a verbal threat made to someone and where just an individual would call and report it in. Sometimes it'd be, say, an incident on campus, on a school campus, where that'd be a problem. One of the times it was somebody that we worked with that was a problem in a large grocery store chain in San Antonio.
Okay.
So there's...
I think I know which one.
Numerous ways.
Yeah.
There's numerous ways that could happen.
Okay.
Sometimes people posting things online. Online's a really big way where you can flag people who are problematic because in most of the time there's something that's called leakage. So where they'll post online threats and things like that, thinking they're anonymous.
So that's the term leakage y'all use for social media. And of course it is a sensitive topic. I was just in the city of Uvalde very recently. You happened to make that location, did you?
Did, yes.
And not to make it too sensitive or get too emotional, would you be able to talk about your experience with that or when you went?
Sure. The day of the Uvalde shooting, we were asked, and let me back up. As the psychologist for the fire department, I ran what's a peer support team. And so we were asked to go down to Uvalde that day to debrief Uvalde EMS, who primarily, most of them are volunteers.
Oh.
And in a town that size, everybody knows everybody. So when they're going in to try to see what kids they can bring back out, it was likely that they knew them or knew their family. So it was very sensitive. It was a terrible thing that happened. And terrible in a town like that just, it's a small town. People think they're safe, and to have that happen in their elementary school, it's just shocking. Yeah. Most people can't comprehend it.
Yeah,
same thing, a couple of weeks later, we were asked to go back again, peer support group. And I should say, too, at the time, when we're talking about the peer support group, we were working with the San Antonio Police Department as well. So we traveled kind of in a caravan with the police department and some fire department vehicles to go down there to help do this. And then a couple weeks later, we were asked to go back and we debriefed the emergency nursing staff that was there that day treating those children.
So the shooter from Uvalde, and I'm not even going to mention the name because I'm not going to do that. Is this someone that could have ever or should have somehow been on the radar? Would you have ever done a threat assessment? Should somebody have seen him?
Yes, absolutely. I want to make it really clear, too, that in these mass shooting sort of incidents, there are two types of people. There are people that are just truly bad, but then there's people that are mentally ill. And I think all too often it gets blamed, oh, well, he was mentally ill. No, that person was just not a good person. And yes, they're in hindsight, there would have been signs. But I don't want to group him into being a mentally ill person. And just to make it a little more clear, there is a disorder called antisocial personality disorder. Okay, it's not what it sounds like. It's not somebody who's just afraid to go out in public, right? It truly is somebody who has no conscience. If they're truly antisocial, they don't have a conscience. Where there are mentally ill people as well who do bad acts, but it's different. It's a different kind of mental illness. Antisocial is a category of mental illness, but it's different than your person with schizophrenia that might act out.
Yeah. No, and is that part of what you look at, I guess, when you're looking at something?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you want to look and see, what are their behavior patterns? Have they had mental health treatment before? Have they been jailed before? Do they have any sort of threat background? Have they acted up when they're younger? I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can look at.
Amazing work. Even though I knew a little bit about it, we knew the group existed. I didn't know everything they had done. I didn't realize how many multiple agencies were involved, and I think that's
it has grown. I mean, back in the beginning, it truly was a San Antonio Police Department based thing paired with the Sheriff's Department, and then they added the fire department, and then because you see in a lot of cases too that if you've got somebody that's ill, say they're mentally ill, there's going to be fire department calls as well, because they've been called to their house to treat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that all that working together helps to identify. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. I think it's wonderful. I think the work you guys do is wonderful. And again, coming from the San Antonio Police Department myself, I'm always amazed when I travel the nation and figure out, this program came from the San Antonio Police Department. There are multiple things throughout mental health, CIT, what have you, domestic violence, and they get their programs from our department.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's amazing.
It's definitely a model for the country.
George likes to jump into things head first, which I appreciate. So let's talk a little bit about how the model got started. Maybe can you kind of walk us through, the steps of threat assessment, what the Fusion Center actually is and does?
I can talk a little bit about that, not a lot. It's just because it's something that you want to keep protected. A multidisciplinary labor of love. I mean, there's a group who's come together to do what they can to stop these mass casualty events. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Are they going to stop everything? No. But if you can stop most of them, then that's what the goal of it is.
How many have they stopped?
Oh gosh, you can't really put a number on that because you can never predict if they've stopped something until somebody's acted out, right?
Right.
I mean, people might talk about it a lot, but not ever actually do anything violent.
Well, I'm just trying to, maybe like a ballpark figure on you've had a threat assessment, you thought, this could have played out differently, but, you were able to either get that person, maybe, get them some help. It sounds like you guys do some, you have programs and like ways to shuttle these people into a different path as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Just maybe like a ballpark number. How many?
Over the years, I couldn't even ballpark it. I mean, there would have been thousands of cases potentially over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's just, I guess that you've actually looked at. And I would say this, how do you quantify how many lives you saved
really
just by
can't.
showing up? Police officers on scene, how much crime? It'd be very difficult to quantify.
It would be impossible to quantify because, like I said, until they've actually acted out, you don't know if they're really going to do it.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people talk a big game on social media and things like that, but they're not actually going to do anything. We all know that people get very brave behind the keyboard.
But you address all those regardless, or do you kind of feel those out as a psychologist?
So there are layers that would qualify as something that a team would look at. The same thing. Now, my particular role was looking at behavior, personality, what kind of mental health issues have they had in the past, if any mental health issues, and then you can kind of make an educated guess on their potential for acting out. But you take every threat seriously.
When you talk about it, I can tell, of course, I've known you for 17 years, but I do know that when you talk about this program, I know that you're very passionate about it and you know that you're heavily involved in it. Is there a pathway that you're still going to stay in this type of program where you might go back and assist? Because you have a lot of years doing
Never say never, right? Never say never. When I was on the police department, how it kind of started out on as far as my path in really getting interested in that, I was on the hostage negotiation team. And that's a whole lot about looking at different personalities and, again, prior behaviors, right? The best predictor of future behavior are past behaviors. So I always thought being a hostage negotiator was fascinating. I love it. You could sit there all day long on a call out and do absolutely nothing but sit in your chair and think and leave more exhausted than you've ever been in your life. Because mentally you're just, a lot's going on up there. And I find that fascinating. So would I continue in this field? Yeah, fast. Absolutely.
So I guess my question is, like, we're always trying to improve anything, right? Whether it's business or the police work and so many things. Right now, from where you stand, and of course, just being retired, how could that program be improved? Is there a way it can be improved, or are we're doing it?
To be honest, they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. What really has to work, and this is hard with government agencies and different entities, right? Is you've got to have a bunch of different people sitting at the table and not get territorial, right? Like, it can't just be our program. It's got to be a bunch of people who help out. Because if all these other entities aren't talking, then it's not successful.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like check your ego at the door kind of thing.
When these events do happen, some of them, they slip through the cracks, even with, the signs on social media or, family members or, friends or people kind of see things that, may not be right, but it may not get reported up the chain or to the right people, and they do slip through the cracks, and you do have one of these mass casualties. Do you guys have a role in kind of the post, investigation, I guess? Is that something, do you guys assess that to help you better determine, like, where that link was missed and where it could have, where something could have helped and it didn't?
So I'm not a part of that piece of it so much, but I very well know that, right, you look at what's gone wrong and try to make improvements and build on it, like what could have been missed kind of thing. And the problem a lot of the time is say you've got a family member that's creeping along that path, right? Most times people don't really think they're going to do it. Well, he would never do that. I mean, he talks a lot, but he would never do that. And so it's typically in hindsight, right? You can look back at a lot of these situations and should have seen, oh, that's where it could have gone wrong. It's that whole see something, say something campaign.
Yeah.
That has become really popular over the past couple of years.
You never think it's going to happen to you.
No.
Until it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sure, in some of the cases, if you look at some of the bigger mass casualty events, in hindsight, probably could have predicted that this guy might have done something. But hindsight's great. Like
2020.
2020. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But so your guys' job is to kind of bridge that gap and help seek out where, people might kind of hold back, right? That family member, well, this isn't going to happen or whatever. Maybe something pops up on social media again and again and again. And where the family member may not say something, well, he's not going to do it. Or the friend group, he's not going to do it.
Right.
You guys can step in and maybe flag that or
intervene.
Yeah, and intervene. What does that intervention look like?
Okay, so that is going to be a very kind of broad answer as well. It depends, right? Is it a law enforcement intervention? Is it more of a mental health intervention? It's very situation specific. It's going to depend on kind of on the individual and what they're doing.
We've talked about social media. We've talked about like family, friend groups, maybe peers, school counselors, things like that. What about more thought out or planned out path, like dark web? Are you guys involved in any of that, like cyber investigations?
So that wouldn't be my piece again, right? I would just be looking at the individual. But the web provides a lot of information that people don't even seem to realize. We've got a whole generation of people now who feel very safe and think they're completely anonymous when they're behind, when they're behind a keyboard. And so, yeah, you can get a lot of information about people off the web. And it's easy to transmit stuff too, right? Like news travels fast on the internet.
What about groups of people? Are you guys only assessing threats from individuals? Or are you looking at like terrorist cells or?
A lot of that's involved, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't talk about a lot of
No.
that? Okay.
I figured that one.
Understood.
Yeah. But sure, absolutely. You have to look at different groups. I mean, there's even, you would go in and look at the situation, like there's a person that's a problem. Look at that. Look at who are they surrounding themselves with? Like what's going on there?
Is there I know there's a tag unit here in San Antonio. Does Houston have a tag unit? Does Dallas have a tag unit? Does
I
Austin
think
have
now all of them do.
Yeah, all major cities
I would
have
say
tag.
all major cities. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Many of them do.
So many of them have a tag unit. I hope it's a similar format. And is there a pool? Is there a constant pool of information that somebody can go to, like, uniform crime, anything like that, where they can go to your tag and see who you guys are monitoring? As we all know, criminals don't stay in one geographic area; they move.
And yes, to answer your question, that's again not a area of my area of expertise.
Okay.
But information sharing is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you know somebody that's been in your area, that's going that area, then there's going to be a transmission of information.
Absolutely.
And sharing. Again, this only works when people are willing to check that ego and share information.
On that, and again, not to go down a rabbit hole, but I can tell you, in even this modern area of law enforcement, I was always amazed at, why didn't we know this? Well, because either such and such investigator or a department, they felt like that was theirs. And if everybody's going to crack it open, it's going to be them. And do you see that within certain units, even from a psychologist, where you see, man, that would have been helpful to know if somebody would have
shared that information? Sure, there's always going to be that. Again, but that's a hindsight thing, right?
Sure.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until it's too late.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think people too, right, are just very reluctant to be like, oh, that my kid could do that, right? My brother could do that. My dad could do that.
I think we say that, didn't their family know them? I'm sure their family knew, but man, to put the authorities on your family member to say this could be the one.
Right.
That's a precarious thing.
It sure is.
So.
Absolutely.